Hello, Gino here, and you are listening to Otherworld Connections. We live in a critical time where now, more than ever, angels and fairies, hidden forces, are bursting at the seams of the veil to work with us. They want to see us change in order to save the world and live in service to others. So join me on a journey to empowerment and enlightenment with an angelic angle and a fairy focus, looking into ways to improve our current situation, morality, archetypes, solutions for self-healing, and spiritual sciences in light of theosophy and other occult traditions. Welcome back to Otherworld Connections. Today we're talking about, today's episode is called Patience from a Pendulum. So we're going to talk about patience, and we're going to talk about using a pendulum. Now, I am a pendulum freak. It's actually almost shameful. It is almost shameful. I might share a few stories with you about my weird pendulum dowsing adventures. And I don't do this searching the ley lines thing. That's an interesting thing I've found with people that are into dowsing. I think there is conflict over what dowsing actually is, and I believe a lot of people keep it in the lane of using a rod and searching for ley lines that have been searched by millions of people over probably millions of years and mapped out. And then people remap the map and discuss why their map looks slightly different to the other one. That's not the dowsing I'm talking about. I'm talking about, using the pendulum for direction, but direction in all aspects, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Anyway, 4 minutes past the hour. So we are going to do patience as another world connection gateway. Patience building, also known as what the fairy realm likes to call it, time extension. I like that, time extension. Right, which is a cool way to call patience if you think about it. Extending time. Well, we've got a limited amount of time here on Earth, but if you build up your patience, you can spend more time on certain things. I'm just going to read from a book by Charles Belmonte from 1994, Patience, The Path to Victory, Pointers for Accomplishing One's Mission in Life. Now this might be it could be Catholic. Catholics love talking about patience. Patience is not the whole thing, right? Patience as part of a balanced way of living life. Just so you know, that's where we're at here. How patience and fortitude are related. Okay, there's a little prelude thing here. The passage in the Gospel where the Lord intimates the struggles and suffering that his disciples will face concludes, through patience you will command your soul. That is Luke chapter 21, verse 19. To command, one needs fortitude. Patience appears in our Lord's words as a necessary component of fortitude. Fortitude of soul is frequently exercised under the form of patience. In Christian life, patience should also be united to meekness and serenity. And all these virtues should be at the service of charity. All right, into the chapter. Well, there's just a few bullet points really here. Here we go. We may regard this correlation of patience with fortitude as incongruous. It is because we often have the wrong idea of patience. We often think it is passivity and easily mistake fortitude for activism. We habitually think that patience is an indiscriminate, self-immolating, crabbed, joyless and spineless submission to whatever evil we encounter, or worse, deliberately seek out. Patience, however, is something quite other than the indiscriminate acceptance of any evil. Insensitivity or hard-heartedness may occur when the soul is neither moved nor affected by calamities that befall us and those around us. Not because one possesses the virtue of steadfastness, but rather because of the absence of human and social sensitivity. Rather because of the absence of human and social sensitivity. Okay, so the word sensitivity, the quality sensitivity has come up, which is a prerequisite for dowsing as well. Interesting. To be patient means to preserve cheerfulness and serenity of mind in spite of injuries that may result from doing good. Patience does not exclude energetic, forceful activity, but simply sadness and confusion of heart. Patience keeps man from being broken by grief and losing his greatness. It is not the tear-veiled mirror of a broken life, but the radiant embodiment of ultimate integrity. St. Thomas relates patience to the virtue of fortitude. Patience is a kind of fortitude that leads us to follow the dictates of our right reason illumined by faith, without yielding to difficulties or sadness. The man who is brave is also patient. But the reverse is not always true. Patience by itself is not the whole of fortitude. The brave man not only knows how to bear inevitable evil with equanimity, but he will also not hesitate to pounce upon evil and bar its way, if this can reasonably be done. This attitude requires readiness to attack, courage, self-confidence, and hope of success. There is an element of self-confidence in fortitude. It is the hope that a man puts in himself, naturally in subordination to God. All right. So there's, it almost feels like in this book they're saying sort of resilience is like a synonym for patience. Perhaps. So that is interesting. So putting up with stuff and not letting it get to you. And what springs to mind are martial artists that, where it says here, just giving, patience is not just allowing all evil to happen. If you look at martial artists, sometimes they go and get punched by somebody and they think it's funny. But that person punching them, that was evil. Punched for no reason or assaulted. And they might say, hey, you can have that one for free, buddy. But if you do that again, I'm going to break your nose. And then they move along. So that's patience. That's like this fortitude. And, well, we for time. We just move on to, this book's popped up again. The Psychic Pathway by Sonia Choquette. Finding Your Desires, page 235. Let's have a look. Finding your desires. What do you really want to do? That takes patience, because we have to live in the matrix, dude. We have to go to work and we have to do things. We have to suffer the reality that we're in. And all the while, we need to have that fortitude to make time for ourselves and find our life path. You will get what you dwell on. Your desire doesn't have to be a grandiose and lofty one. Most likely it won't be. Look at what areas of your life are painful, frustrating, or unpleasant to you now. What tiny little change can you imagine would bring about a little pleasant relief? That should be the focus of your first goal. And that was that Pepsi challenge, remember? Are you doing the Pepsi challenge? Are you imagining yourself having a Pepsi? To begin identifying your goals, follow these simple steps. Number 1. What is your most immediate need now? Write down in your journal what it is you most lack or long for in your life. Number 2, try not to be concerned over how, where, who. Just focus on what you wish were better right now and leave it at that. Number 3, keep your list of desires in the beginning to a time frame of 1, 2, or 3 weeks, a month at most, and focus on the most immediate desires. I find that when I focus on fulfilling my immediate life needs, it actually helps me to get closer to that greater future I long for. My point is, sometimes you cannot see important connections between the immediate situation and your ideal future. So start by focusing on the immediate situation, however mundane and insignificant you may think it is. I may be the very catalyst to a much greater chain of events. So this is all about goal setting again, right? Goal setting, and important part to highlight here is I find that when I focus on fulfilling my immediate life needs, it helps me get closer to the greater future I long for. That implies, she's not using those words because perhaps this is a new agey kind of book, but that implies action. So you got to do something about it, right? And when this lady says you will get what you dwell on, well, yes, you will, in the sense that what you dwell on informs how you act, okay? And informs how you feel and informs how you act. So don't forget that. Sometimes I think some of these books leave it out to make it look easier and to give it more of that appeal, because this one's called The Psychic Pathway, right? So it's kind of implying that everything's just only your mind and doesn't require anything else. But we know better than that here at Otherworld Connections. So we can use these books and have a look at them. All right. Where are we now? Right on time. Building Up Patience. As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. This is a very popular book for the bro-trepreneurs out there. 1903. James Allen. Cherish your visions. Cherish your ideals. Cherish the music that stirs in your heart. The beauty that forms in your mind. The loveliness that drapes your purest thoughts, for out of them will grow all delightful conditions, all heavenly environment. Of these, if you but remain true to them, your word will at last be built. Excuse me, I'm back. To desire is to obtain. To aspire is to achieve. Shall man's basest desires receive the fullest measure of gratification, and his purest aspirations starve for lack of sustenance? Such is not the law. Such a condition of things can never obtain. Ask and receive. Dream lofty dreams, and as you dream, so shall you become. Your vision is the promise of what you shall one day be. Your ideal is the prophecy of what you shall at last unveil. The greatest achievement was at first and for a time a dream. The oak sleeps in the acorn. The bird waits in the egg. And in the highest vision of the soul, a waking angel stirs. Dreams are the seedlings of realities. Your circumstances may be uncongenial, but they shall not long remain. So, if you but perceive an ideal and strive to reach it, you cannot travel within and stand still without. Here is a youth hard pressed by poverty and labour, confined long hours in an unhealthy workshop, unschooled, and lacking all the arts of refinement. But he dreams of better things. He thinks of intelligence, of refinement, of grace, and beauty. He conceives of, mentally builds up, an ideal condition of life. The vision of a wider liberty and a larger scope takes possession of him. Unrest urges him into action, and he utilizes all his spare time and means, small though they are, to the development of his latent powers and resources. Very soon so altered has his mind become that the workshop can no longer hold him. It has become so out of harmony with his mentality that it falls out of his life as a garment is cast aside. And with the growth of opportunities which fit the scope of his expanding powers, he passes out of it forever. Years later, we see this youth as a full-grown man. We find him a master of certain forces of the mind, which he wields with worldwide influence and almost unequaled power. In his hands he holds the cords of gigantic responsibilities. He speaks, and lo, lives are changed. Men and women hang upon his words and remold their characters, and sunlight, he becomes the fixed and luminous center round which innumerable destinies revolve. He has realized the vision of his youth. He has become one with his ideal. All right. So, patience, fortitude required in that. But this man, as the example, had an ideal. Yeah. So it's a tricky one, right? You got to have your goal, your plan, your idea. And then, if it's big enough, if it's a big enough one, or if you reach your big enough ideal, your big enough dream, then that's your life. That's your life. So you got to be patient to make that happen. And what else was I going to say about that? Enough said about that. But yeah, again, it's talking about, what your visions and what you view and your dreams and your ideals, that's what you're going to manifest acting out in the world at some point. So it takes patience to stick with those too, right? And if you're not so good at this, if you're not so good at this patience as explained thus far on Otherworld Connections, this kind of fortitude and, putting up with stuff to maintain that goal, to stay on track. If you're a sensitive soul, this is where the pendulum comes in as a gift to you from the fairies or the angels, what have you. You might have heard it here, whatever. Using the pendulum is a patience building tool. Alright, that's as simple as that. It's a patience building tool. If you are sensitive and you are shaken by things and you struggle with things and and you're struggling with your goals and blah 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 blah, well, the pendulum requires that type of sensitivity because it exists really to help you. So that's something that's 100% true and important to know, because you get into these, you dive into these worlds and there are loads of experts telling you what to do. And that's what they say, isn't it? Don't listen to anyone else, just listen to me. But that's all right, because you're not paying me and I'm not asking for your money. For nothing anyway. Alright, utilizing the pendulum. Okay, let's do a crash course on the pendulum. Well, what do you ask? Okay, first off, you need a pendulum, right? And here's the thing. A pendulum, I got one in my hand now. I always have one in my pocket. I have about, I have at least 10 pendulums, and some of them are random. One is, I'm just going to tell you, one is a shoelace with a stone tied to one end of it. Okay? You can spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars on super fancy engineered ones that look like little UFOs made out of, anything, brass, gold, copper, of course. Copper's popular. But you just need something that swings. I would go so far as to say you can use anything that can go in a pendulum motion. Okay, so you've got your pendulum. You go to your metaphysical shop and you buy one, or you make one out of literally anything. Okay. What do you ask? Well, I recommend, because it's such an experiential thing, that you don't read books on how to use a pendulum. Definitely don't. You just need to think about what you're going to ask, because your answers are only yes or no. So in a way, I don't even really need to tell you. But at the very beginning, you want to figure out which direction is yes, which direction is no. You want to ask, are there any other answers you can give me other than yes or no? You might get a maybe that might be spinning around in a circle. I say it's different for everybody. In the books, you read the books, they say left to right is absolutely absolutely no, like shaking your head. And forward and back is absolutely yes, like nodding. But it's not that for me, because I never read the book, I just asked the pendulum. Okay, then you know what your yes and your no and thing, and then you can ask questions to see if actually it's legit. Ask questions that you know the answer to. That's how you can test the yes or the no. Ask questions that you know the answer to. Alright? Use your discernment, right? Don't go chopping any body parts off because of what the pendulum tells you. And this is where the patience building comes in, right? And also it builds an awareness of your values. Okay, moving to the next part of using the pendulum. So you got your questions, right? What to ask? Wait, hang on. What else can you ask? You can ask, like, you think of like your mind, your body, and your spirit. A good one to ask is like, is there something I should do today that I haven't done before? Or is there a particular book that I should read? Is there somewhere that would be a good idea to go? Maybe the answer is yes. There's somewhere I should go. Can you point to where I should go? Or you could say, actually, sorry, I've skipped all these questions for so long. I've done this for too long. You can say, is it? Then, like, here's an example of the process, okay? Is there somewhere I should go today? Yes. Is it somewhere in my house? Maybe it says no. Is it somewhere in the neighborhood? Maybe it says no. Do I need to get in the car? Yes. Will you help me point the location on a map? Yes. And now we're moving towards what will probably be, if you are lucky, or depends on how you see it, unlucky enough, Earth Feng Shui, basically. We're looking at, Otherworld connections. This is a big part of why I do the show, really, from the dowsing. And I learnt about being in service to others, and then later I discovered the Theosophy teachings. That your pendulum might be asking you to go and quote unquote serve the earth, move things around. When I say Earth Feng Shui, I've done a lot of just it's weird. It is weird. And I think that's part of the patience building and part of character building. So you might go, and one thing that the pendulum has asked me to do is a particular activity where going around picking up stones, being pointed to stones, picking up that stone and moving it to another location, often under a tree, at the trunk of a tree. And then at the trunk of the tree, picking up another stone and moving that stone and putting it to the trunk of another tree. One little story here is that I was doing this when I was doing this, which is very weird. I decided to give my faith in the pendulum as long as I wasn't, harming people or myself or breaking the law, especially breaking natural law, right? So if it was something that, wasn't going to hurt anyone, I was going to explore it. And so I ended up driving around, on my day off with a map and going into parks and places and picking up stones or sticks and moving them. Oftentimes the sticks wanted to go back on the tree that had fallen off, which is interesting, just to be on contact with the tree rather than on the ground, and then just moving stones around. And I'll tell you one thing, that freedom cell movement, that Derek Bros thing, well, I decided to try and meet people, and I set up a meeting, a weekly meeting in a park. But before I did that, or while I was trying to do that, I was moving stones around, and there were a focus on certain areas of Auckland. Now, Auckland is a very, very big city, and I mean in terms of the circumference of what the border of the city would be. It's huge. It's only got, it's probably about 2 million people now, or 2.5, but anyway, it's really big. And the focus on moving the stones were around particular areas, like in a way that I ended up going, listen, I'm not doing this anymore, because it was kind of like the pendulum was trying to get me to go onto properties, right? I'm like, okay, I'm not doing that. I already look weird. I'm in a residential street picking up stones with my pendulum. People are looking out the windows. This is not looking cool. And I felt like part of it was trying to get me to build up my outgoingness and not caring what other people think. Like, okay, I look like a weirdo, so what? Kind of thing. Anyway, long story short, that the people that came to the meeting, for whatever reason, I found out where they lived, and where they lived were in the areas, like I didn't get their exact address, but where they lived were in the suburbs that my stone moving focus was. And there are loads of areas in Auckland, like loads. But all those areas that I was working in, where the people from the Freedom Cell that arrived, each of those areas, there was a person from every single one of those areas. Does that make sense? I was moving stones heavily around an area in Ōrākei. Someone came from that area in Ōrākei to the Freedom Cell. I was travelling all the way to East Auckland, to Whitford, moving stones around there. Somebody from Whitford came to the Freedom Cell movement, Freedom Cell meeting. So I can't prove that that's the connection, but what I will say is that if you know about orgonite, this moving stones thing has an orgonite type of effect, which orgonite in a way is a feng shui, because it affects that ether, that chi, prana, whatever you want to call it. So I'd like to think that I influence the minds of those people a little bit, lean them more towards, hey, I'll go check this meetup out. And this was during those lockdowns, those COVID lockdowns. All right. Utilizing the pendulum, locating faults and problems in and around the home, objects, items, electrical and electronic equipment. Also, the pendulum might direct you to a hidden talent of yours. Maybe the pendulum wants you to go and fix things, particular things, and you find that you like it, and you start having to research about, electricity or electronics. And, it goes without saying to be careful, right? But the point is that the pendulum can unlock issues with energy flow. That's what I'm trying to say. can point out faults and problems to do with energy flow. I fixed my car. Believe it or not, I know nothing about cars. Nothing major, right, guys? But at least I saved myself from maybe getting swindled by the mechanic. Well, you can also look for faults and problems with your body. Is there somewhere I need to work on? You might find you go down a path of interesting exercises from asking questions, exercises that are good for your body, or stretches that are important for your body that you should do every day because of some issue. And they might be counterintuitive because it might be to do with the energy flow, it might be to do with the body meridians. So it doesn't have to be just going around searching for the earth meridians and then chin stroking. You can get all kinds of solutions from this stuff. What's an example of that? I do certain yoga poses that I found out through dowsing. And like we've gone through in other episodes, that there are correspondences between, the physical and the mental and the spiritual. So you can do physical things that can build up emotional things, mental things, or spiritual things. Certain yoga poses to improve your fortitude, your patience, your courage, your strength. All these kind of things. Alright. And you can use the pendulum to collect quote-unquote fetishes, which are objects, items that you keep with you that help you for certain things. Now this is I kind of find it pretty fun. The fun part. So doing the earth feng shui, when I go around and move stones and rocks, or get directed to make an orgonite, and I get directed to put certain stones and rocks in the orgonite, and then the orgonite needs to be gifted somewhere. That's a big thing that I've done. Making a whole bunch of orgonite and then going and putting them in nature somewhere, wherever the pendulum requests them to be. You will likely get something in return as a thank you and a reward. Might be just a stone, a feather, a stick, like a bit of wood, mostly stones. And then you can ask, it's about questioning, right? Never stop questioning. What is this stone for? I've got stones for all kinds of things. Got my little radionics kit, so I can put the stones on my radionics kit to amplify the signal. And I've got some old man's beard, which you can feel it. If you ever meet me, you can ask me about it, and I'll show you. You can put your hand on it, and you can feel it. Almost like if you've put your hand near some selenite, you can feel that magnet, that sort of pull. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So you can get little things that help you in return. And utilizing the pendulum for your diet. So I actually, this one I've tried, this one I do for myself, and I do actually for other people, and I've been blessed enough to have about 5 people in my life agree to me doing a dietary list for them from my dowsing. And even if they're humoring me, I'm really grateful because I get to practice doing this. And it works, and it is something that I do. And you know what? Just shameless plug here. I do offer that as a service real cheap on my website. And that is, you purchasing something that is actually legit and really good. And money back guarantee, because I just want to help people, and I know that it works and it is good. And what I mean by that is basically dowsing food items, fruits, vegetables, proteins, blah, blah, blah. whether they're biogenic for you or biotoxic or somewhere in between. And interesting things come up. And one of the people that asked me to do it they were about to tell me about their allergies. And I said, don't tell me, because then you're not going to know if I'm, when we are not going to know if this is actually, just completely full of it or not. And yes, the chart did pick up on the allergies. So the questioning, the dowsing, did pick up on that. So interesting. So there you go. Utilizing a pendulum, you've got to figure out which way is yes, which way is no. If there's a maybe or if there's something else, you got to get that clear, and then you can go into asking what you should do today, where you should go, and then you have to reframe the question in a way that you get a yes or no answer. And this, if anything, builds your patience. And building your patience builds your intuition, which we will talk about in a moment. And you can use your pendulum to locate faults and problems with things or yourself, mentally, spiritually. And the pendulum will, asking all these questions, what will come about is a focus on things that might be related to your ideal, your goal that you may not have figured out yet. So the pendulum unveils things about you that you may not have thought of. And the other good thing about the pendulum is it fits the bill from what we were talking about in the beginning, is suffering things. If you make time to do the pendulum, well, you're making time for yourself in a busy, hectic world, which shows fortitude. Okay. All right, donation request time for Revolution Radio. This is Gino from Otherworld Connections and The Secret Kindergarten, and thank you for tuning into Revolution.radio, the #1 listener-supported radio station in the whole world. So please help support our efforts and airtime by visiting the donations section on our website, Revolution.radio. All right. So dowsing and patience, patience and dowsing. Dowsing builds patience, having patience helps dowsing, and patience is important to achieve your goals, to discover your goals. If you are having trouble with all of that, and you consider yourself to be a sensitive person, then the pendulum is a perfect tool for you, and it might just show up in your life after hearing this. You might see one. It might just pop out. All right. And it is 17 minutes to the top of the hour. And I just want to announce that the children's show, Secret Kindergarten Radio, is no more on Revolution.radio, and I'm putting it on hiatus for various reasons. Well, one reason is that I've reached over 100 episodes, 102, and I think the first 2 were a bit average, so 100 episodes. Children love repetition. So there are 100 episodes for kids to choose from. I don't think I need to push that every week. I don't think there were actually children listening on Revolution.radio live, so I didn't think it was necessary to push that. That doesn't have that much to do with it, because while I did it on Revolution Radio, I would record it and then publish it as a podcast. You know what? The podcast itself has been growing, and just to be completely candid, that is looking at an average of about 12 downloads a week, with 2 shows being published a week. So that might mean 6 people, 6 families downloading the show. Now, out of those 6 families, are they actually families with children? Because the show is good. Like all good children's shows, they're good for grown-ups as well. Maybe it's misunderstood. Anyway, I've done 100 episodes. They are good. Some of them are perfect. if you are a parent out there and you have question marks about what's good and what's not, well, I do recommend that, even though it's just me telling you that. I recommend checking those out to give yourself an idea of what should be done for kids. Number 1 is spending time. Number 2 is reading fairy tales. Number 3 is positive affirmation. Number 4, which you're already getting away from, super important, is talking about bees, learning about bees, because of essentially pollination. And for young children to understand really well pollination, when it comes time to reaching the second phase of childhood, the 7 to 14, when it comes time to reaching about 14, 11, 12, 13, 14, right, puberty, then the awkward talk, the education of, reproduction and stuff like that is going to be easier, is going to be more received in a mature and appropriate and natural way because of the study of nature in earlier years, especially of pollination. It's not going to be some alien concept that smacks them about the face or something that they have to learn in the gutter. You get me? So it's idealistic, right? Is it practical? No, because we all have TVs. And we need a break because of the world that we're talking about, the world that we're living in. It's busy. We have our slave jobs. We have all these things that we've got to put up with, and we need a break. And sometimes it's too much. And putting your kids in front of the TV is helpful in that sense. Secret Kindergarten radio show for kids is just an option there that isn't out there. There's no one doing that. Sorry. And listening, I know from my experience, because I used to be an early childhood teacher, is that sitting down with headphones for kids gets more engagement for longer amounts of time. So there's no reason not to try it. So there you go. So I kind of, in my opinion, I've ticked all those boxes. I'm going to pull out more children's shows at some point, but the other point of what I'm saying is that meanwhile, all stuff to do with pedagogy has been building up in my repertoire that I want to put out there. So on Saturdays Eastern time, 2 p.m, Secret Kindergarten radio show will be for grown-ups, and we'll be talking about pedagogy. So people that are interested in child development, probably because you have kids, and I'm trying to make this a one-stop shop for the alternative media community / truth community / free people that want freedom. Okay? In my opinion, the trick lies with the kids, and the trick lies with us respecting kids in a particular kind of way. So, if you can take that kind of information from a guy that walks around with a pendulum, who doesn't even have kids, but who was a kid, and for this, that, and the other reason, I focused a lot in retrospect on my childhood. What went wrong, what went right, and how that informed my adulthood. And that's how I came to the conclusions and the activities through study, experience, and from living the life that I lived. And that's that. So does that make me weird? Yeah. It makes me a weirdo, dude. But a good weirdo. And it's a thing that, it's hard to talk about. Because what I see out there, people talking about conscious parenting, this kind of thing, it's an adult to adult conversation that I see. And it's not speaking in the heart from the heart and the mind of the child. It's not in consideration of that. We don't just need a natural law TV show. That is not the way to do it. We need to get involved in the world of the child. We need to bring back our imagination. We need to grow our imagination. And it comes down to the goal setting. That part of our brain is stifled when we are young. And then we have that part of our brain not active properly when we're old. And so our ideas are, are stunted. Our plans for change are stunted. And the secret in bringing that back lies with engaging and respecting the children in a particular type of way that is the antidote to essentially everybody's favorite topic, missing children and, satanic pedophiles. Alright. My blah 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 didn't go for as long as I wanted it to. So yeah, that's the thing with the secret kindergarten. So I'm going to do some adult stuff, grown up stuff, I mean. As in, kids shouldn't listen to it. So in the event that you're someone that listens to that and you have kids, well, don't tune in live. Well, do tune in live. I'll say at the beginning if kids really shouldn't listen to it. But it'll just be more like it'll be boring for them. Doing a series on television this coming up this week, Saturday Eastern Time, 2 p.m. You can tune in and learn about the TV, why it is bad, and it's going to be an ongoing series. So yeah, if you really want to know the truth about TV, there's a lot more to it than satanic symbolism in the Disney films. I'll tell you, Disney has got family engagement and entertainment on absolute lockdown. I would say Disney is the most powerful entity on planet Earth, man. And we'll figure out why through this television series. And, just not being too bothered about it. We can still use Disney a little bit to our advantage if we're doing the right things, not just Disney. Controversial thing to say in the world of the truth movement, man. But it shall be revealed if you tune in. Secret Kindergarten for grown-ups. Grown-ups edition moving forward for the meantime. Okay. And if you did have kids listening, send me an email. Let me know, because I can change what I do, because I do this for free anyway, and I do this for you guys, whoever you are. All right. Dowsing. Things that come about in my life through dowsing. Diet. Changes in diet. Tarot reading. Oracle card reading. I have a collection of cards and interesting ways of reading them that are not book read, that are dowsed. Otherworld connections came through dowsing. Dowsing came through building my patience and caring about the kids and trying to make a change, or trying to learn from the kids and teach the kids. Dowsing came from all that as a gift. Service to others. Otherworld connections came about through dowsing. I started to ask, who is helping me? And if you look at Rudolf Steiner's work, that kind of gets to the point where it becomes, what's the word? Well, spiritual science is where you're not anthropomorphizing, but you're seeing these archetypal forces as entities, as actual things. And that's where the angels and fairies came up through my dowsing. Because I asked, is this pendulum representing a particular archetype or a particular force, particular energy, blah, blah, blah. And then it became fairies. So this pendulum is a fairy pendulum. A stone fairy is, I don't know, linked to that. My guardian angel is linked to another one. Did I need to know those things? Not really. Again, it's about putting a name to things. Because that's what science does, right? When you get this and you that, when you add this with that, you get this other thing. So it's just putting a name to things. I got radionics. I got things that emit frequencies. I got an orgone zapper, orgonite zapper. I got things that weird things that I made, all for healing devices, subtle energy redirection or absorption or emission devices to energize me, to chill me out, to hopefully stop me from eating less. And that sort of thing. And now we have reached the top of the hour. So hey, thanks so much for tuning in. Hey, let me know. Send me an email if you get into dowsing. Gino@thesecretkindergarten.com. I love you all. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.